Ginny. I cannot believe him. He stood me up. He promised he would come at least for the wedding. He knew how important it was. It's Luna's wedding. Luna's wedding. I would have understood if it was, I don't know, one of my colleagues, for example. I know how he hates being stared and fussed over by strangers, but this is Luna. They were going to be only friends and muggles. I'm so mad I can hardly think straight. This sodding job is draining our lives. There is always a dark wizard behind every corner who needs to be caught. Always something that needs his undivided attention. Sometimes I wonder if he's the only one working in that office. How is it possible that he always needs to be there for any tiny thing? Most of the heads of department barely show up at work, and he basically lives in there. And mind, I try to be understanding. I realize he has got a demanding job and he is working to make the magical community a safer place, but there must be a measure. I try not to complain when he gets back home late or work on Saturday, but this is getting out of control. And to add insult to injury, he didn't even call himself. He let Elizabeth do it. Coward. He'll pay me this. I was so happy to finally have a nice holiday with him, to be able to travel around without kids. It's youngs we hadn't had the chance. And I was planning to be so nice to him. I even bought some very endearing lingerie in a very expensive shop. Well, he can forget that for a very long time. Apparently, there has been a breakout from Azkaban. Elizabeth was very worried about it, as a matter of fact. It must be serious. She's always so composed. A Death Eater. No wonder Harry felt to stay. He made his mission in life to capture them all. I don't know how many hours have been stolen to our relationship in this pursuit. When I'm back, I will need to have another serious conversation with him. It cannot continue this way. Sunrise is very handful, and I need help to take care of her. And I cannot hide. I get worried sick sometime. I see the condition in which he gets back from work. He tries to hide it, and I play along, pretending not to see what is blatantly in front of my eyes. But I cannot be imposed upon. It's a dangerous job, the one he had undertaken, and we both live with the constant preoccupation he might not return home one day. I try not to think about it, and I suppose he does the same. But when something very bad happens, I can always tell. He closes up in a gloom it's almost scary. Or some other times, he enters in such agitation of spirit, it seems he is living the last instants of his life. I must say, sex is amazing when he is in one of those moods, and it's the only actual thing that managed to calm him down. But still, it cannot be right, and it scares me more than I'm willing to admit. Sometimes it seems as if he's walking on the edge of a precipice, ready to fall any moment, and I constantly need to be vigilant not to let it happen. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only thing that can keep him from falling. It's not easy to be married to him. When I saw him for the first time at 10, I fell in love straight away, in a romantic, childish way. He was the boy who lived, and, in my eyes, he couldn't be anything but perfect. When I grew up, I quickly understood he was out of my league, going out with Cho Chang and Parvati, and they were way prettier and more popular than I could ever aspire to be. So, under Hermione's advice, I started to console myself somehow with somebody else, and I found out I could attract guys too. Dean was quite hot, all considering, and a good catch. But to be completely honest, I hung out with him only because he shared Harry's dormitory. It was only a way to be noticed by him. Harry was the one I always longed for since I was 10. He was a hero, fighting you-know-who, risking his life any other day, and on the top of it, getting more handsome by the year. There was an irresistible aura about him. He was emanating strength and bravery from every pore, all the while being quite dashing without even realizing it. Always humble and shy, he could have had any girl in that school, only snapping his fingers, and never got profit of it. How could a teenage girl not to fall for him? We were all so taken, and he chose me. A girl like any other, prettier than most, but definitely less than many. I often wondered why. I know many brats bitched behind my back saying it was only because I was his best mate's sister. Now I can say in full conscience that at the end of the day they were only jealous. But then I felt a bit insecure, even if I endeavored spite in front of this accusation. What if they were right? Would you have looked at me if I wasn't Ron's sister? Did you want to marry me or Ron and my family? But they were only teenage insecurities. Growing, I understood it was a bit of both, and it was fine. In fact, even better. I rejoiced in the idea that I could give him, other than myself, a family who loves him as I do. My last hours here has been one of the happiest of my life. Harry had proposed, and I was over the moon. I was getting married with none less than Harry Potter. I never felt so important as that year. People whispered in no when I passed by. I was surrounded by morbidly curious girls who knew I was meeting Harry at any Hogsmeade trip and wanted to know particulars, tickling my self-esteem pleasantly. Obviously, I spurned the girls and I pretended to be totally indifferent to this unexpected popularity. But I can admit to myself now, inside, I was swelling with pride and satisfaction. I was certainly in love back then already, but I had an image of him that didn't quite exactly represent the truth. I was aware he had a good heart, and I was sure he would have protected and cared for me tenderly. But I think I idealized him quite a lot in my young mind. It was only starting to live with him, when we shared our life, that I really got to know him in all his humanity, all his weak sides, together with his merits. He didn't quench my love. Quite the opposite. He brought him from the pedestal I formerly installed him to my level. He was not a flawless hero, but just a man. An amazing man full of virtues I never suspected, but also full of worries, issues, and insecurities. His childhood, his troubled past, left a strong mark. I discovered it straight away. The gloom that sometimes pervaded him, the agitation of spirit, were only two of the things that made me wonder. I still remember the first time I've been awakened by one of his nightmares. I was terrified by the violence of it, scared when he woke up shaking like a leaf, and I could see a trace of the horror hidden in it through his eyes. He has always refused to talk about them, as he always refused to talk about what was troubling him. I didn't push it. It didn't seem the right move. I always thought that in good time he would have felt the need to let everything out, and I would have been there for him. It happened, eventually, right after Lily died. Only I never thought it would have been as it has been. With that act of brutality, he showed me all what was hidden in him. He discharged his mind from that fardeau rendered unbearable by our child departure. Only at that moment I really understood how scarred his mind was. The traumas were deeper and more rooted than what always imagined. Behind all that strength, there was a lot of fragility. Very little was needed to destroy his mind completely. I cried then, not for what he was doing to me, but because I understood that violence and fierceness was what he always harbored inside. After years and years of silence and struggles to show me the best, For the first time, he was showing me also the worst. And I've done what I promised myself. I've been there for him. Is it not what love is all about? Could I have walked away from him then? Accept all the good, but turning away the first time the bed was presented to me? Walk away the first time he so blatantly asked without words for my help? I couldn't do that. All started because I desperately wanted to help him, and I was given the opportunity to do it. It hasn't been easy. I put myself aside completely to be a sustain to him. I repaid violence with tenderness and comprehension because I understood that was all what he needed. He needed me comforting him more than anything else. I had mom, dad, all my brothers and friends. He had virtually nobody but me. And in a moment where I would have only liked to lie in bed and cry the whole day, I had to rally and be strong enough for two. The days following Lily's death had been the worst of my entire life. Everything was falling apart. I was wrecked to bits. I couldn't think about anything else but my baby. My baby, who used to be so full of life and laughter, lying cold in a coffee. But my boys, who are still there, needed parents more than ever, and Harry was unable to be of any sustain, completely out of his mind by sorrow. The children were scared to be in the same house with him, and I couldn't blame them. I was scared too, in a way I never thought possible. He shunned me completely. Sorrow was tearing us apart, not bringing us together. And on the other side, my birth family was falling apart likewise. It was none the less than Ron who killed my little girl, my brother. He was in Azkaban. Mom was worried sick. Some of my brothers blamed him. They were starting to fight between each other. Both my families were threatening to crumble under my eyes. I couldn't allow it to happen. I couldn't indulge even a second in an ill will that would have destroyed everything. Ron was blameless. It had been an accident. Period. It was the only way to keep everything together. If I didn't blame him, nobody in my family could. Nobody could argue. He had to be cleared by every fault. He ought to get out from Azkaban as soon as it might be. Hermione never asked me to do anything, but I knew that what was happening in my family was happening likewise in her own. Bring back stability and an appearance of normality was the only thing that could save us from annihilation. It was necessary again to rally, put myself aside, and try to mend the leaps in both my families. All these efforts helped me, in a way, I believe. They didn't allow me to fall into despondency. Lily was my beautiful girl, a ray of sunshine, a breath of fresh air in a chaotic house of boys. But I knew he was that and more for Harry, the first child of ours he welcomed with joy and not preoccupation and fear, like for Albus, and in much greater measure, James. Lily was for him what James is for me. If I was born a boy, I would have been James. I can see so much of Harry in him, not only because of his look, but in all his impetuosity and strength of character. Unfortunately, it goes together with that tendency of self-deprecation of which both are so prone, both suffering from the same evil. They are both shadowed by something too big for them. Harry by the popularity brought by his defeating you-know-who, and James by Harry's popularity. Many of Harry's insecurity as a father come from this knowledge. I don't think he has been a bad father. He made many mistakes, to be sure, but understanding it, he tried to mend them as best as he could. He's surely a man with many issues, but also many wonderful qualities that always made my task of caring for him cherished. He loves me, as I could never hope to be loved by anybody, with a strength and devotion that sometimes frightens me. In his eyes I'm perfect, which I'm far from being, and he spoils me to such a degree that sometimes I need to put a stop to it. And I just don't get why. He could have any woman out there would give her right hand to have him. And some of them are so beautiful that I could almost understand an infidelity. Probably not forgive it, but definitely understand it. And he just either doesn't notice or avoid them pointedly. Any woman out there would worship him like a god, give him his way in anything, adoring him blindly. And he has eyes only for me, who am not submissive, I don't flatter him that much, I definitely don't spoil him. As a matter of fact, I scold him all day long. What do I do to merit such a devoted love? Why does he love me so much? There is a quivering fear in me that one day he will wake up and discover that I'm not that perfect after all, that I'm getting old, that I'm annoying, that she wants somebody younger and more complying, and he will realize that there is a queue outside the door. That's another reason why I never lower my guard fitness-wise. How I envy my slight overweighted colleagues, them finishing a tiring workday, go home, slouch on the couch, eating ice cream straight from the box, while I slave myself to death with sit-ups and I survive upon carrot and celery sticks. I had 4 children. Most of the women with 4 children I know look about 60. I cannot allow that to happen to me. We are followed by reporters anytime we step a door. Once I find one lurking in the corner of a mango shop. Thankfully, as a last-minute whim, I wore some makeup before to go out. My picture is in a magazine, a day yes and a day yes. I don't want people to say, "Oh, look, Harry Potter's wife looks so sluggish." I must be at my best not to shame us both. It's tiring. It requires a lot of dedication, hard work, and time. But then, I must admit, I'm quite pleased seeing the figure we cut when we are all together. Very endearing. We are a very beautiful family indeed. Harry is hot as a god. James is getting more handsome and manly by the day. Albus has got all the best features of my family, plus Harry's dashing eyes, and Sunrise is a cherubim. I'm very proud. All my efforts pay off. Yet, it's still upsetting when pictures published on newspapers are not of our family, but of Harry with some other woman. I learned a long time ago they are just mendacious, horrible lies. But yet, Harry cannot understand what they mean for me. He should be more careful. All the women at work look at me piteously for hours, and as soon as I turn my back, an excited gossiping booms straight away. The whole magical community is convinced I'm cheated on any other day with celebs as well as teenagers, which is very unfair on my regard, and on Harry's too. He's not that kind of person. He would never and ever use me heel. He would never and ever cheat on me. Especially if you think he has got Regina under his eyes any other day, and he could ever as easily as a glass of water but doesn't. I know some people think I'm mad to keep her in the house, but I couldn't leave that girl go on living as she did. She's so smart and ambitious. She has potential to achieve much, but her look gives the world a false impression. She's very much sought after by men because of it, and that could seriously damage her self-esteem in the long run. I'm glad I met her in time to put her in the right path to success. It was so easy for her to take a bad turn. I'm not sure why I felt like helping her so much. Perhaps because her childhood has been as abusive as Harry's, and they remind me very much one another in many ways. Obviously, she's completely, utterly, hopelessly in love with Harry. She doesn't hide it, and I'm glad she doesn't. She's open about her sentiments for him, But, being smart as she is, she cannot help to notice that Harry considers her just a girl, and is entirely in the dark about the real nature of her feelings. He is truly convinced she is a teenager with a childish crush over his popularity rather than over him. Surely that was the case at the beginning, and she still adores him as a sort of divinity. But there is more to it now. I don't disabuse him anyway. He would just freak out needlessly. He cannot handle this situation at all. Why am I not worried in the least then? Firstly, because she never had any mother and found one in me. I helped her when she had nobody in the world, and for that she loves me as much, if not more, than Harry. She would never do something to hurt me. Second, she understands Harry. She knows he loves me devotedly and would distance her straight away in case of any funny business. She is not willing to run the risk to lose the greatest of privilege, as she deems it, to be close to him. Thirdly, her openness cannot harbor deceit. If she would have any design on him, she would conceal her sentiments and not avowing them on every given occasion. And surely not avowing and discuss it openly as she did to me when asked. To her, we are the perfect couple. She relishes in seeing us together and spend time with us. She's so besotted with him that only because he chose me as his wife, I must possess some divine characteristic too. Bless her. And fourthly, I'm sure that Harry would never do anything like that to me, being her 10 times more alluring than she is already. He is always so nice and sweet. He repeats me constantly I'm beautiful, even when it's so black that I cannot possibly be. In the morning, for example. If a guy tells you that you look stunning in the morning, he is definitely in love. There are no two other ways about it. Especially when you're 37 and mornings surely are not the time of the day that enhance your charm. I wonder how he's coping, all alone, surely worried sick about this Death Eater. I'm sure he's not eating properly. He never does when I'm not there preparing him meals. Maybe I'll just pretend to be angry, just to teach him a lesson. Then I'll forgive him graciously and we will have a delicious night cuddling each other. A week should do after all. He worked so hard, the poor man. All considering, just a day or two should be enough, actually. Oh, what the heck, who cares? I can't wait to see him again. After all, the lingerie was very expensive. The wedding has been just lovely. Luna was beautiful. She had a stunning long golden dress and her hair were all braided with yellow strings and flowers. I helped her to arrange it and the result was gorgeous. She has got a shiny, perfect skin, fair and smooth. I envy her so much. It's beyond me how she can always look so young. Perhaps I was wrong in always disdaining her garderobe shoes. Sean is smitten with her. He's a nice guy. Sexy, albeit quirky. He showed up in a flowery swimsuit, flip-flop, and a short-sleeved shirt, which proved Harry's point about the definition of formal occasion given by those two. Well, I'm not going to make him gloat revealing that much, and if Luna doesn't object, I guess it's fine. Anyway, I cried when they exchanged vows. I could not refrain it. I never thought I would see her marry and they looked charming together. Stella was very pretty too. I arranged her hair in the same style as Luna and we got for her a similar gold dress. I didn't wear my witch robe in the end. There were too many muggles. I wore a strapless cobalt blue dress about here. Simple, but very fetching. Empire line, floating soft fabrics, and I arranged my hair in a high bun. I'm glad to see I still attract some attention. One or two of Sean's friends were quite flirty despite my venerable age. I allowed a bit of flirtation as a mild rebellious act against Harry's abandon and to tickle my self-esteem a bit. But really, they were just lads. Albeit very well formed and attractive lads, I must say. There must be something in the hair here. All guys look gorgeous. Hermione looked good too. We went for some shopping a few days ago, as she was planning to wear a suit. Very sad indeed. That woman hasn't got the ounce of style. She has got so much potential, but she's always so sloppy. Which is for the best, perhaps, coming to think of it. At least when Harry is around. I know very well he's not attracted to her or anything, and he's barely aware of her as a woman. Despite between the two of us, she's definitely the more endowed to her as a man. Years of repetition had its effect. But still, I'm not too keen for him to notice how pretty she can be. Honestly, when I found out she was in love, I wanted to chop her head off and boil it for supper. My best friend married to my brother. Can you believe it? Getting profit of the loving nature of my husband? She shouldn't have allowed him to touch her. She should have moved to the other side of the planet in a nunnery, and instead she allowed my husband to be nice to her. My husband. Frankly, it has been a big blow. But it has been a bigger blow for Harry, who has a tunnel vision when woman and woman's feelings are concerned. I kind of always known deep down, but it was easier to pretend otherwise. I used to tell myself that just because in her situation I would have fallen for him on day one, it didn't necessarily mean it worked likewise for her. Huge mistake. We, women, have a natural sixth sense that should always be listened to. However, upon reflection, after getting into a rage with her, with Harry, and with the whole world besides, I was brought to senses. I endeavored to put myself into her shoes. I remembered what I felt when afterwards I looked at her with Cho Chang, all the uneasiness, the hopelessness, and I was only a girl, loving a myth, not a grown woman, loving a man. But what really convinced me to put the matter aside and accept it, it has been Harry. One day, when I was pregnant with Sunrise, we were having a walk. A group of witches and wizards spotted and accosted him as usual. And, as usual, he had to listen to the same tales, answer to the same questions, and I, who didn't have any part in it, was seriously bothered. But then I looked at him, polite, as he always is, answering and listening patiently, and I realized that this was his life, which he faced every day. Most of his interactions were of the same kind, and all of a sudden, notwithstanding surrounded by people, it struck me how lonely he looked. Therefore, when he asked me to invite her money for his birthday, I decided to talk to her to sort it out. Harry needs all the friends he can get, especially if they are clever, sensitive, and love him sincerely. But that doesn't mean I don't always keep my eyes open, and I promise I try not to gloat. And I earnestly hope she'll grow out of it. Even if I don't see how that can be achieved, to be completely honest. Especially being married with Mr. I'm an insensitive git. Anyway, Harry not being of the party, I enjoyed myself in making her shine. We chose, that is, I chose, a very fitting pale pink dress to enhance her gorgeous tan, with a tight embroidered corset to enhance her prosperous shapes. I straightened her hair, and I applied only a tiny bit of makeup. Not much was needed, as she has very nice skin too, very luminous and devoid of imperfections. No freckles to hide. At the end, she looked stunning. Ron couldn't take his eyes off her, and I'm sure tonight they will do what Harry affirms they never do. Or at least I hope so. When she learned the reason of Harry's absence, she got so agitated she seemed on the verge of jumping in the closest fireplace. I retained her, but she has been quite fretting for the whole ceremony. Perhaps I'm not taking the thing seriously enough. It's difficult to take any matter seriously when the sun shines and one is on holiday. Ron, on the other side, wasn't that impressed by his absence. He thinks it hasn't been nice of him to leave me here on my own. He's right, but then I tried to defend him as best as he could. I really cared and being in good terms again. I want everything to get back as it was. Well, we ate on the beach. A guy was playing a guitar and we danced a bit. There were bonfire, a cascade of yellow flowers everywhere, and everything was quite easy and cheerful. Luna really has a knack for these kind of things. She brings easiness wherever she goes. I got back in my apartment quite late into the night, or quite early into the morning, and slightly tipsy. Almost like being 20 again. There is something missing though. I do so wish Harry was here. Harry is here! I just nodded off when a noise woke me up with a startle. I squinted in the morning twilight and I saw him sitting on a chair, his head rested on his hand, watching me intently. You are here, I say sleepily, hugging my pillow, not able to contain a smile stretching on my lips. I knew that coming to the point I wouldn't have the strength to pretend hunger. I'm so happy he managed to come. Shame he missed the wedding, but this surely means our holiday is steady on. He only smiles as an answer and takes a gulp from a bottle on the table. Does it mean you caught the guy? You have been quick, I say, pushing back my hair and rubbing my eyes. Thankfully, I wear a nice nightie. Again, he doesn't say anything, not taking his eyes off me. It mustn't have been an easy capture. Usually, silence is always connected to something nasty. Well, he's here now, safe and sound, and I know how to bring back his speech. You must be exhausted. Come here, I invite him, patting the bed on my side, resting my head on the pillow. He doesn't wait to be asked twice. Humbling over, he undressed, and I thank heaven to have given me a husband that after 20 years of marriage I can still look at with desire. And judging by what I see, the sentiment is totally reciprocal. I don't think he's getting to bed to sleep. Not yet, at least. Bloody hell! This weak abstinence really got to him. It seemed years he hasn't been having sex instead of just 7 days. I'm worn out completely. He didn't stop a second and it was quite rough. Usually he's much gentle. Now he's dozing. Not surprisingly. I should do the same, but I'm slightly thirsty and I want to get a shower. I greatly need it. I wear my nightie and I sleep silently in the next room. It's still too early in the morning, and outside there is nobody to be seen besides one or two joggers. The street is quiet, immersed in the morning placidity one can only really enjoy when on holiday. The sun totally gives a different face to everything. Green seems even greener, the flowers are brighter and more blooming, and even a simple street like any other has an appearance of cheerfulness. Harry had always kind of manifested an inclination to move away from England, but I never consented. I don't want to be far from Mum and Dad. But looking outside, I can see his point. The sea is not far, and I can contemplate its lazy ripple from my window. When Harry wakes up, I'll suggest a run on the beach if it's not too hot. He'll enjoy it for sure, and then we can have breakfast on the balcony. Everything promises the beginning of a lovely day. I'm still looking outside when a sudden noise makes me jump out of my skin. Harry is calling me, but as I turn my back, the smile that was ready to appear freezes. He is not on the door, as I was expecting. His head is in the fireplace, and the noise I heard, it was the fire crackle. My heart out completely is beating, and I have to remind myself to breathe. My eyes dart to the other room, where I know he's sleeping, and my brain seems unwilling to help me in any way. I'm paralyzed, my hands still resting on the windowsill, and the hair in the fire, misinterpreting my confusion, start to apologize. Ginny, I'm sorry. I know I promised, and you have every right to be upset. But this is serious. You cannot imagine the uproar we are having here. It has been hectic the whole day. I managed only now to find the time to call. The guy seems to have disappeared into thin air. There has been a sighting in Nocturnal Alley yesterday, and nothing else since. He is a highly dangerous individual with a scary psychological profile. I managed to move from the window in a sort of dizziness, getting close to the fire. My brain, still reeling madly, is only able to give me chills that cover my body with a cold sweat. Harry, seeing my lack of response, looked at me entreatingly. Ginny, please, try to understand. I'll make myself forgive, I promise. I need to sort this out as soon as it might be. I think the guy's on me. He's deranged. At that moment, an arm is around my shoulders, as the person, until a few moments ago I was convinced being Harry, stares into the fire. Deranged seems a bit harsh as a word. I'd use very clever. And yes, I'm on you, but I've got the feeling it will be you who will come to me. And I also think you won't sound the alarm, you won't tell anybody where you are going, and you'll be quite quick, he said, moving his gaze on me with a malicious smile while I'm trying frantically to remember where I left my wand. Because your charming wife will keep me company until then, and I only just started to make her scream.